The New York Knicks and the Miami Heat are set to face off against each other in the second round. Both teams managed to shock the world in their first round matchups. Most people had the Cavaliers beating the Knicks in the first round, yet the Knicks managed to beat the Cavs in just 5 games, closing them out on the road in Cleveland. And what the Miami Heat did was even more unexpected. The Miami Heat were a team that barely survived the play-in tournament, going up against a 1-seeded Milwaukee Bucks team, which most people viewed as title contenders. It wasn't surprising that the Bucks were the heavy favorites to beat the Miami Heat, yet the Heat also managed to take out the Bucks in just 5 games. Now we're about to get a really fun and competitive series between the Knicks and the Heat. So in this video, let's briefly break down both teams. Let's give the keys for both teams to win the series. Let's give the X factors, and I'll give my ultimate prediction on who I think is going to end up winning this series. The Miami Heat have overachieved largely thanks to the superhuman production of Jimmy Butler. Now, Jimmy Butler always saves his best for the playoffs, but this year, he's been on a whole nother level. In his first round matchup against Milwaukee, Jimmy Butler averaged 37 points per game in that series, with his best performance coming in Game 4, where he dropped 56 points. That's tied for the 4th most points ever scored in a playoff game. His combination of ball handling skills, footwork, and craftiness makes him impossible to guard one-on-one. And the Miami Heat as a team has been shooting really well from 3. As a team, they're hitting 45% of their threes, and this makes Jimmy Butler even harder to guard because he can punish help defenders in double teams by finding the open man. In the playoffs, the Miami Heat have flipped the switch offensively because they only ranked 25th in offensive rating in the regular season, but so far in the playoffs, they have the 2nd best offensive rating. The Knicks dominated their first round matchup against the Cavs. It was really impressive is that they did that with Julius Randle struggling pretty much the entire series. Jalen Brunson has become the face of the franchise, and he was great in that Cavs series, averaging 24 points and 5 assists per game. RJ Barrett really stepped up. He struggled mightily in those first couple of games, but games 3 through 5, he was excellent. And Josh Hart, who proved to be a great pickup at the trade deadline, also was excellent. But the Knicks also dominated Cleveland largely thanks to their defense. Defensively, they shut them down. In Game 3, they held the Cavs to just 79 points, which is the least amount of points a team has scored this season in both the regular season and the playoffs. So far in the playoffs, the Knicks rank number 1 in defensive rating. Now for the keys to this series, starting off with the Heat. As good as Jimmy Butler has been, you have to wonder if what he's doing is sustainable. Now, as I said before, Jimmy Butler is always a monster in the playoffs, but right now, he's knocking down 44% from deep. And Jimmy Butler only shot 35% from 3 in the regular season, and that was on low volume. He only hit 2 attempts per game. Jimmy Butler is great come playoff time, but the law of averages would suggest that eventually he's going to come down to earth. But even when his shooting does go back to his averages, Jimmy Butler needs to stay ultra aggressive, looking to create for himself and others, because the Miami Heat don't have any other elite shot creators outside of him, especially with Tyler Herro being injured. Another key for the Heat is Bam Adebayo. Can he be more aggressive offensively to relieve pressure from Jimmy Butler? Bam Adebayo is a defensive monster, but his offense tends to leave a lot to be desired. He just doesn't have that killer instinct that you see in a lot of today's superstars. Now, he was great in the closeout game against the Bucks. He dropped a triple-double with 20 points, 10 boards, and 10 assists, but the Miami Heat need that from him every night. When Bam Adebayo is aggressive and he's looking for his shot, he's one of the better scoring centers in the league. But in this series against the Knicks, the Miami Heat are going to need Bam Adebayo to be aggressive like that every game. Now for the Knicks. One of the keys for the Knicks is they have to shoot the 3-ball better. In their first round series against Cleveland, the Knicks only shot 28% from deep. That's really bad. That's the worst 3-point percentage amongst all teams in the playoffs, but fortunately they were able to get away with that largely because the Cavaliers struggled to score themselves. But in this series against the Heat, the Knicks are going to have to hit the open 3-pointers. RJ Barrett and Julius Randle struggled mightily to drain the open threes, and Quentin Grimes, who hit 38% of his threes in the regular season, only shot 11% from 3 in this series. Against the Heat, the Knicks likely aren't going to be able to get away with being so woeful from outside. The Miami Heat will likely double team and trap Jalen Brunson, and the Knicks have to be able to punish the Miami Heat by knocking down the open three-pointers on those kickouts. Another key is Julius Randle, as the Knicks need him to step up. He averaged 25 a game in the regular season. That's down to just 15 points per game in the postseason on 33% shooting. But to be fair to him, he was dealing with an ankle injury, and unfortunately he tweaked it again in game 5. I think he has a much more favorable matchup going against the Heat. Against the Cavaliers, he had to go up against a big front court with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, but the Heat are a team that play with one big man in Bam Adebayo and play with 4 smalls. Julius Randle has to be aggressive going into the paint, where he's one of the best inside scorers. If Julius Randle can play up to at least his normal standards in this series, then the Miami Heat are going to be in trouble. And the last key for the Knicks I'll discuss is Immanuel Quickley. He has to play better against the Heat. Against the Cavs, I thought his defense was excellent, but he was underwhelming offensively. He only averaged 9 points per game on 34% shooting. Immanuel Quickley was runner-up for 6th Man of the Year for the work that he put in the regular season. So he's going to need to play to his normal standards, so that way the Knicks' second unit can outplay the Miami Heat's second unit. Now for X Factors. For the Knicks, their X Factor is RJ Barrett. He's been blossoming for them at the perfect time. Now he's still struggling from outside, but he's been getting downhill and finishing at the rim really well. He's getting to the free throw line, and he's also been passing the ball really well and finding the open man. The Knicks are going to need RJ Barrett to keep this up in the Heat series, and for the Heat, their X Factor is Gabe Vincent. Gabe Vincent has stepped up for Miami in the playoffs. He's actually their 3rd scoring leader in the playoffs at 13 points per game. He's somebody else that could create off the bounce and create his own shot while also creating for others. And the Heat are going to need Gabe Vincent to keep this up against the Knicks, because they need him to relieve pressure from Jimmy Butler, who's had to carry the Heat offense. As for my prediction, I have the Knicks winning this series in 6 games. I think the Knicks are going to unleash Jalen Brunson, largely thanks to some much better three-point shooting. I think guys like Julius Randle, Quentin Grimes, and Immanuel Quickley are going to shoot much closer to their regular season average in this series. And I think that at some point, Jimmy Butler is going to come down to earth, and the Knicks are going to be able to put more defensive pressure on him. But that's going to be it for me. Now I want to hear from you guys. Who wins this series, and in how many games? Tell me in the comments. Guys, if you enjoyed this playoff preview and you want to see more just like it, drop a like on the video and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and have an amazing rest of your day, guys.